I didn't think I was in trouble while there's emergency team trying to keep me alive, right? But it's like when I hear the blood pressure, oh, I'm in real trouble. Yeah, I'm dying. This is dying. I'm dying right now. And then my next thought was, no one I love is here. And I had the most immense sadness just come over me. I'm like, I'm dying and no one I love is here. And then I was just about, it was very hard to keep my eyes open. And I remember looking in the corner of the room and seeing the physio, and he was just pale. He looked so scared. And I thought, you poor guy, you think you've killed me. And then I blacked out.
My guest today is Ash Perrow, who had an incredible experience with ripples on the other side, and yet he chose to come back. Why in the world would somebody choose to leave heaven to come back to earth? What he learned about his purpose will actually help you understand your purpose. So, Ash, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Laurie. What an honor to spend time with you. Thank you.
This is going to be such a great conversation because you had a really incredible experience, and I'm really excited to let you share what happened to you with the audience. So I'll let you go ahead and tell your NDE in however you would like to tell it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Um, I guess it really started, well, it started way back in 2005. And so my wife, my then wife, we had a we had stillborn daughter together. And there was a moment in that experience where I was holding my daughter, and it was so beautiful. Never just hold, she was perfect in my arms, just so perfect. I'd never felt anything so perfect in my life. But she was gone. And and the, I had this moment where I thought, I'm not going to let anything bad happen to my family ever again. And in that moment, I was taking responsibility for things that were out of my control. But what happened was it was a glitch that happened, and I locked in PTSD. Yeah, it was like I was one way before that. I was enthusiastic, optimistic, full of life and vitality. That moment happened, and I switched something in my brain. And so from there, I started to develop traits of PTSD. And across a period of a few years, it got worse and worse to the point where I was only sleeping 1 or 2 hours a night. Um, I eventually ran out of energy and had a mental collapse and ended up in mental health clinics. And I went through this process of having to, well, learn meditation to manage the mania and the PTSD. And I my life basically fell apart. And in that process, I started to get a sore back. And over cross time, and I'd always surfed. I'd surfed, and that was one of my sanctuaries was the ocean. And then if we flash forward to 2015, I was surfing and I didn't like the work I was doing. I'd been a school teacher for a long time and was feeling very run down and burnt out. And it was school holidays. I didn't want to go back to work. And I'd been surfing, my back had been getting sorer and sorer. And I was standing on the edge of the water, and the surf was amazing. There was nobody else out, a dawn morning, just beautiful. And I heard a voice in my head, which I call God's voice. And it was like this deep, booming voice. And it said to me, if you go surfing today, you will hurt your back. And I didn't want to go back to work. And I said, in my head, I said, bring it on. All right. And that was a real turning point where I challenged the universe. The universe told me something, and there was a real pattern that I can see, in hindsight in my life where I wouldn't listen to my inner guidance. I wouldn't listen to my intuition, wouldn't listen to what I wanted. And I had a conditioning where it was put everybody first all the time, put everybody else first, me last. And so that was presenting in my life, in the work that I was doing, in my energy, in many different ways. So I'd have PTSD, deep, dark depression. I'd been struggling with depression for 7 years. Um, and so I decided, well, I'm going surfing. Yeah. The universe said, you're going to hurt your back. I'm like, okay, let's do it. So I started paddling out and I ducked over through one wave and I was fine. And then the next wave, I went to dive through and I straight away popped two discs in my back. And what that meant was, the discs literally popped out of the vertebrae and were pressing on the nerves of my back. Excruciating pain, excruciating. And it was so severe that I could only use one arm to paddle back in. And it was very big surf too. And so one arm paddle back in. I got to the shore and I'm standing there on the edge of the water and I can't walk. I'm just standing there holding my board and the waves are hitting my legs and I'm stuck. So if somebody saw me, they came down and helped me. Um, and then after a year and a half of trying to heal my back naturally, I came to the conclusion I have no other choice but to go in for spinal fusion. And so in that year and a half, I'd been trying acupuncture and many natural therapies. None of them were working. By that stage, I was on opioids, I was on endone. I'd been on endone for 6 months. And the relationship I was in, that had been in trouble I'd been in a relationship then for 5 years, but it had been really difficult for 3 years. And my inner guidance had been saying, leave, leave, this isn't working. And my conditioning, I just kept saying yes, yes, yes to leaving my friends and my life behind and staying in this relationship with a blended family. Like my daughter was there and we had a blended family and there were many beautiful things, but it wasn't working for either of us. Um, and so came to the choice, okay, it's time for spinal fusion. And then during the operation, that's when things really came to a head. Yeah.
So things have come to a head and now you're going to have this operation. So why don't you
Yeah.
tell us how
Uh,
terribly wrong this went?
yeah, you can see it coming, right?
You can see it
This isn't
coming.
going to go well. This isn't going to go well. So I went in for the surgery, and during the surgery, the surgeons tore a vein in my groin. That was an interesting way when for spinal fusion, because of the risks involved. What they do is they make an incision in your abdomen, and they take your intestines out, they move them out of the way, and they operate on your spine through your intestines and through your abdomen. And to do the operation that they needed to do, they just had to move some veins to the side. And you have to be very gentle with veins. They're like a tissue paper. And they moved one to the side and it tore low down in my groin. So it created tension and it tore down where they couldn't see from where they were operating from. So they stitched me back up. I went back to the ward, and then for the next 16 hours, I bled out internally, and no one was aware that that was happening. I'd been pressing the button for the nurses and saying, I'm in a lot of pain. They're saying, just press the fentanyl button. You've been through a significant operation. You'll be okay. When the green light's on, you can press the button again. And then the physio came in at 10 a.m. the next morning to get me up for rehab. And I sat on the edge of the bed and I looked down at my thigh. And my thigh was about twice the size of what it normally is. And I remember saying to him, but my leg's not normally like this. And he was very young, straight out of college. And he just said, you'll be right, up you get. And I stood up and then I collapsed. So, and I had a moment where I kind of faded out a bit. And as I kind of came back in, he was pressing the red emergency button on the wall, and the emergency team came in, the code blue team. And they were trying to attach the electrodes to my chest. They wouldn't stick because I was bathed in this cold sweat, like a whole body, instantaneous cold sweat. And they put the oxygen mask on, and eventually, and I can hear them saying, they can't get the monitors attached. He's not breathing. We don't have a pulse, all these kind of things. And I'm laying there and I'm thinking, I'll be okay. I'll be okay. Yeah, things happen. I'll be okay. And this goes on. And as it's going on in time, they're saying, keep your eyes open, Ash, stay with us. I'm aware of where everybody is in the room. It's like I have activated a hyper awareness. And I know where the emergency team are, what they're saying. I can see there's a man in the corner I haven't seen before who's taking notes. One of the surgeons comes in and he's standing sort of to the right at the base of my bed. There's another nurse that was taking care of me. She's standing there watching. And also in the corner is the physio. He's kind of over on the side on his own. And all along that, and I can hear them talking about my blood pressure. And eventually they say his blood pressure is 52 on 36. And at that point, I thought, oh, I'm in real trouble. Right? I didn't think I was in trouble while there's emergency team trying to keep me alive, right? But it's like when I hear the blood pressure, oh, I'm in real trouble. Yeah, I'm dying. This is dying. I'm dying right now. And then my next thought was, no one I love is here. And I had the most immense sadness just come over me. I'm like, I'm dying and no one I love is here. And then I was just about, it was very hard to keep my eyes open. And I remember looking in the corner of the room and seeing the physio, and he was just pale. He looked so scared. And I thought, you poor guy, you think you've killed me. And then I blacked out. And for me, people often ask, did you see a light? Did you see entities? My experience was I blacked out, except I could still think. And I became ripples. And I was these ripples, and it was like everything was ripples. I was the ripples were me, and all that existed was ripples. And the ripples were going out and out and out. And I thought, oh, wow, this is dying. This is what dying's like. And then I could still think, what is going on? This isn't what I expected. Then I had this sense of being myself. And so I call it the unique soul fingerprint. It was like I felt every aspect of my uniqueness and also saw how unique all of us are, that we have this unique soul. And I felt that. And that surprised me. And I remember thinking, oh, I thought I'd become like this enlightened Buddha, but I'm just myself. Yeah. I'm just myself. Oh, okay. And then I started bargaining and I was like, I want to stay. And meanwhile, the ripples are just going out and out and out infinitely. There is no end. There is no end, just out. And I'm saying I want to stay. And then I said, well, I want to stay for my partner, still going out. I still know I'm dying. And then I said, I want to stay for my daughter, still going out. I know I'm still dying. And then what happened was there was something that changed. I felt this shift, and it was like a warm, golden warmth that came through. And I said, came from a totally different place. It felt like it came from a different place. And I said, I want to stay for the work that I do and walk the planet from my heart. Right? Before then, the martyr had been saying he wanted to stay for everybody else. Then it flipped, and there was this different energy that came in. And it was me speaking to me. That was the sense I had. I want to stay for the work that I do and walk the planet from my heart. And the instant I expressed that, straight back into my body, opened my eyes. I heard the medical team say his eyes are open. We've got a pulse. He's breathing. I started moaning and screaming because I was in a level 11 pain. And later on, they told me it was because I'd lost so much blood, it was pressing on my organs. Um, but part of me was, okay, I'm back, I'm back. But I came back to very, very, very high levels of suffering and pain.
Wow. Okay, I've got questions.
Yeah, great.
All right, I want to go back into this place. So you're in the hospital room, and first of all, you have hyper awareness. Do you think at that point you were still within your body and we all have a hyper awareness we don't connect into through the brain? Or at that point, do you think you had actually become your consciousness and that was the hyper awareness?
Good question. I think there was an in-between place that I was in because even though I experienced that immense sadness about no one else being in the room with me that I loved, there was like an emotional detachment to what was happening. It was like there was some part of me was observing that this was happening. It was like it was happening to somebody else. Um, but then there was also the part of me that was there. And so something that because you have something, an experience like this, it becomes this source of contemplation for many, 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 many years. And one of the things that I've come to is, okay, I can see in that process, I was shedding my conditioning. So in my near-death experience, I'm leaving my body and I'm saying I want to stay for everybody else. But the further I go, I connect in with my true self. And my true self wish wasn't to stay for everybody else. My true self's wish was to stay for the work that I do and walk the planet from my heart. That was when the conditioning dropped away. And so then it was, okay, you get it now. You can go back. You've been a horrible listener in the past. You can go back now. You're listening now.
So your ability to go back wasn't necessarily because you agreed to do an act, which was walk the planet with your heart. It was more because you had understood something in a way that most humans probably don't. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
I think even both, maybe. It was that I was here for a reason, and it wasn't to live everybody else's life and please everybody else. It was to be here from my heart. Yeah. And I thought up until that point, my way of living from my heart had been to be a martyr, had been to make everybody else happy, and to seek love by making everybody else happy. I couldn't see that in myself. Other people could see that, but I couldn't see it. And regardless of what my guidance said, I wouldn't listen. I just wouldn't listen. The conditioning was so strong that I would stay with that suffering of not living life to my potential. I would just stay with that suffering. I wouldn't make the changes. And that was out of fear. And I was seeking love by pleasing people. And it was so strong, so strong. So the near-death experience, it planted this seed. It wasn't like I came back with the instant ability to walk the planet from my heart and, realize what my work was. And it planted a seed. It was, I have a podcast that's called Beyond Turning Points. And it's like, okay, we all have turning points. But what happens after the turning point? That's what makes it a turning point. Yeah. So my turning
Absolutely.
point was, here's this contract for you to live by now. Walk the planet from your heart. That's the contract. So I took that very seriously. Okay, I have an agreement. I made it with my higher self or God or whoever that was, where that I was speaking to somebody. I don't know who that was. My sense is it was my higher self. That's the contract. So in this, I call this my second life. In my second life, I have to walk the planet from my heart, not from my mind, from my heart. And the last 9 years has been working through, well, what's the conditioning? And more I've become aligned to my heart and what my heart calls me to do. It's taken a lot of work and a lot of being present and therapy, and there's been explorations with plant medicines and not just psychedelic ones, right? Like master plants that are plants that communicate with us that aren't psychedelic. And it's a constant exploration of listening. Yeah. It's like, okay, my mind, my body, it's an antenna. How do I take care of my antenna so that it's optimized for listening? Because I need to listen to do the work of the heart.
So if you were conditioned, I would imagine there might be one or two other people that are listening who have been conditioned.
Yeah.
What have you learned? Because you put a lot of energy and intention, and these are the gold nuggets. Like, this is the wisdom that you have accumulated over many years of integrating this experience to understand. You've been conditioned. We've all been conditioned. What is the difference in letting go of the conditioning that opened up and changed how you live your life?
I'm going to use the word awareness. It's
Okay.
having an awareness of the conditioning. So first of all, oh, I can see that I didn't act from my heart then. Yeah. And then most people, and I can still slip into this, I'm a human being, right? I might be a unique soul, but I still have a human body with the conditioning. You know, I have an accent, you have an accent. That accent's not going away. It's a bit the same, right? The accent was conditioned into us from our environment. So there is conditioning. At times, I'll come out of the heart and be in the mind, or sometimes mostly operating from the mind, or sometimes mostly operating from the heart. It's like this practice of coming back to the heart. But when I see the conditioning, I used to go into self-judgment. So I can see my depression that I was in was self-judgment. It was deep self-loathing that I was unaware of because I was judging myself for being in those dark, troubling, challenging emotions. Whereas if I can have acceptance for that, dissipation, dissolution, yeah, those emotions quickly come and go with self-compassion, self-love. So we all have conditioning, but can we activate self-love for that? And so that's been a practice that I've learned in the last 9 years. It's okay, that was out of alignment. Can I have self-compassion, self-love? If I can, dissolves very, very, very quickly, and I come back to my true nature.
Is there a little component of this also that you would call non attachment? That you're
Mm.
letting go of an attachment of an idea of a conditioning. And as you do that, that is part of what is dissolving.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
It's
It's
funny
it's
that you
it's
mention that because I've talked about this a lot on the show, and I feel like it's one of the more difficult spiritual places to operate from, where in a non-attachment doesn't mean that you don't care. It means that you are truly not emotionally connecting to an outcome that you normally would have been conditioned to be attached to. So, for example, somebody cuts you off in traffic, the natural response is to get mad, maybe say something, maybe react, maybe even reciprocate. But the non attachment is not to have a reaction at all, but just to view it as an experience. And when you do, it no longer is something that's happening to you, it becomes something that's just happening for you as an experience, which drops all of the reaction to it, which is where we have the pain and suffering. And I feel like that's what you just described. Am I on the right track with that?
You are, but there's one little piece that I would possibly question or be aware of, and
Okay, I
that's
love it.
that we shouldn't have the reaction, right?
So the
Yeah,
conditioning is even letting go of the judgment of having the reaction.
yeah. So you honked the horn and gave somebody the bird. Okay. Can you have self-compassion for yourself for doing that? Yeah. It's like,
Okay.
okay. If you do that, the next time you'll be less likely to honk the horn and give someone the bird. right? If you judge yourself, that behavior is going to stick because you've attached a story to it. So you've created the attachment that you
Interesting.
shouldn't react,
Okay.
right? Which then makes that occurrence more likely to occur because you've come out of the heart, you've got into judgment. Whereas
Mm.
if you could stay in the heart and go, oh, how funny. My little human just got annoyed that someone cut me off and took up a space that I'm not even in anymore. Right. Yeah. And it's like, oh, okay. How funny. Okay. Oh, well, I can understand that. Well, actually, I learned that from my dad. My dad hated other drivers being on the road. Okay, I can have compassion for myself. It's like my accent. That may never go away. That
Why would
annoyance
you
at other
want it to go
drivers.
away? It's amazing.
Yeah, but they're like the annoyance of the other drivers may never go away.
Right.
If you can have compassion for yourself, guess what? Phew, gone, gone.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
But if you
Okay. What a
think you
wonderful
shouldn't, if you
perspective.
think, yeah, if you think you shouldn't have that reaction, that's because you just came from the mind. That wasn't from the place of acceptance and non-attachment. That's the heart. The heart is acceptance, non-attachment. But if you think you shouldn't have had that, there's that word, think. Great key. You just came from the mind.
Right. Okay. All right. Let's go back into something that you said before you left your body. And that was that you felt a sadness because you thought to yourself, I'm dying alone with nobody around me who loves me. And I think that this is probably an area that a lot of people torture themselves around, thinking that when somebody dies, that there is nobody there to be with them if they were alone. From the perspective you have now, was that true? Were you truly alone in that moment when you thought that nobody was around you who loved you as you were dying?
No, but I had pictured that at some point in my life when I die, the people that I would love were going to be there. Yeah. So I hadn't pictured myself having this very fast, unsudden death. There'd been part of me that pictured myself passing away with loved ones there. And so there was an attachment to that. And I couldn't even hold on to that sadness. It came and went. Yeah. It's the nature of our life that comes and goes. I love Sadhguru. He has a chain of funeral parlors in India, right? His community has this chain of funeral parlors. And he talks about this in one of his videos. And he says, our tagline is everybody's a customer. Yeah. And so we can't hold on to anything. We are, we are, right? We are a being, we are a soul, but we can't hold on to anything in this experience. A little take on that is every relationship we have will end. Yeah. Every relationship, because either we will move on or they will move on. But when we do move on, we're still present beings. We're just not in the physical form. But those concepts of relationships. And a coach that I was working with, he was feeling really down because one of his clients immediately ended their sessions. I was like, okay, that relationship was always going to end. And him having that insight, freedom. Oh, I see, I see. All relationships end. It doesn't mean they won't be painful, but the acceptance that they all end. Either, we go or they go. And that's just the relationships. For every hello, there's a goodbye. Okay. Can we accept that? And if it is painful, can we be present with the pain and accept that there's pain? That too will allow it to pass faster.
Very helpful, I think, to people watching. So you're on the other side and you have now become these ripples, and you realize that your ability to think is still there. And I know that words are not our friends. They are so difficult
Mm.
for these experiences that are ineffable. But in any way you can, will you help people to understand what you mean when you're talking about these ripples? What are they? What are you feeling while this is happening? Can you have any words that describe them?
Yeah. So it was a sense of energy going outward, and there was just no separation. I was the ripples were me. We were one, and everything was in the ripples. There was no end to the ripples. They would just go out and out and out and out. And I would call that consciousness. It was ripples of consciousness, ripples of awareness, ripples of being.
Was it a calm energy that you were in? Was it a powerful energy? Was there no feeling of any of that?
It was very calm, very calm,
Very calm.
um, and, and very powerful, and but powerful in a way where it just was a bit like the heart. That's the power of the heart. Is it is, yeah, and that's the power of those ripples, that energy. It just is. It doesn't not exist. It doesn't win or lose. It just is. And so that was the energy of those ripples.
So you mentioned that you understood that there was a unique soul fingerprint that you had because of this experience. Were you at that time experiencing your own unique soul fingerprint, or were you part of what I would call the entire collective consciousness?
I think my way of experience, the collective consciousness was the ripples. But also there's part of me had to experience the unique soul fingerprint so that I could come back with that understanding, because that was a piece that was missing, that was crucial to whatever it is that, is this experience of life and whatever I'm here to do.
And can you help to clarify what that means to the people who are watching who have not had that experience that you had? What do they have within them as a unique soul fingerprint?
Well, it's you. Yeah. And so you as Laurie, you have your own unique way of being, your own unique energy. There's no one like you anywhere in the whole universe. You are a being and there's nothing like you. And so when I said I thought I'd become an enlightened Buddha, I thought I'd be somebody else, not myself. What a surprise to die and be myself. Oh, gosh, oh. And, it wasn't disappointment, it was just surprise. So we all have that. But one of the characteristics of our mind is it judges us for being unique. And that's a survival strategy, that when humans were in real survival mode, and I know there's still humans that are in survival mode, but as we were emerging as a species, it was crucial that we were in communities. That's why we survived. One human on their own, very vulnerable. One human in a community of 20, 30, 50, 100 people, much safer, much more likely to survive. So we have conditioning that makes us, inverted commas, fit in. Yeah. And so we can get caught up in that and forget who we truly are by trying to fit in. Once again, the example of an accent, right? Who you grow up with, that's the accent that you start to grow.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's a good analogy. You said that before you had this experience, you had felt like you were a people pleaser. You were putting everybody else first. I think that there are people who are watching who think of that and they know that they're doing it, but when they think that they're doing it, they call it service to others. You were shown, or it was understood or known to you, that you needed to take a different stance with that because it was going to serve you differently. So will you explain this little nuance of what you knew before, which was putting others first versus how you had to lead with your heart-centered self?
Our body has a wisdom. Our body has a deep, deep, deep wisdom. And so for me, the Holy Trinity is our soul, our body, and our mind. They're three things that need to work together for us to thrive. Yeah. The mind has its own wisdom, which is based on the past experience of our lives and our ancestors. Yeah. Our soul has its own unique wisdom and its own unique purpose. And then the body has this deep wisdom. It's an antenna, very deep, deep wisdom. And if we take care of that, we can use it as a tool for guidance. A way that people can work on that is there's something called a false yes. And kinesiologists work this way where the body gives a signal where it's strong or weak. If I say yes to something, but I feel weakness in my body, that was a false yes. Yeah. We're having a party Saturday night. You should come. "Oh, okay, I'll be there." But my body's like, I don't want to be there. I just said yes. Yeah. And then I go there and I'm like, oh God, when's this going to end? I want to get out of here. Why did I say yes to this? I did it again. Right. And so then we go into the cycle of judgment. However, you can combat that with self-compassion and self-love. Oh, yes, your conditioning got the better of you this time. Okay. You did a false yes. And so it's developing your awareness of what a false yes is, and then breaking that practice of saying yes to making it actually, thank you. I really appreciate you inviting me, but I won't be there on Saturday night. There's a true yes. And then even as I say that, I can feel the strength in my body behind that. The truth, there's strength in the truth. So as a people pleaser, what are your false yeses? Feel into your body. You know at the point of saying yes, or even before that, that it's going to have this weakness to it. There's strength in your yes, that's aligned. If there's weakness in your body to that, you're just about to do a false yes.
You are making me so happy right now. One of the reasons that I love to have these conversations is because when someone like you has gone through this experience, you've accumulated this wisdom and you've had to spend a lot of time doing a lot of work on yourself, trying to figure out how to integrate this and what to take away from it and what to implement. And I know that there are so many people right now listening who are just understanding that a lot of what they're doing in their lives are false yeses and they're not honoring themselves. And I hope that people replay this. I'm going to make a short of this because
Hmm.
I want people to have the ability to replay this little snippet because this is a gold nugget that you just lobbed to everybody to have them understand what it is, what they're doing, and how to do it differently and how to listen to that inner guidance, that inner wisdom, that inner feeling. Oh my gosh, Ash, this is so powerful for people. And when you realize that you had been doing this and you changed that, how did your life change?
There was a lot of resistance around me, shall we say. Yeah. So 3 weeks after I got out of hospital, the relationship I was in, it fell apart.
3 weeks, that's not very much
3 weeks.
time.
Yeah. So, and I was very ill. It took me 8 months to get back to full-time work. Um, but it was like the universe just went, okay, you chose to come back. You're starting from zero, virtually zero, right? There was some blessings. My daughter and I moved out, and I had very few possessions other than music gear. And my daughter had her bedroom and her belongings, and we started life again. So, from very poor health, a house, I didn't even have a bed. I didn't even have a mattress. We started life again. And so rebuilt life. And along the way, just so many lessons. I've forgotten what your question was.
It wasn't necessarily a question. It was just more of a just tell us how your life is different. Once you realized that you didn't have to use the false yes anymore, how did everything around you change? And you started to already say that because you started to listen to what wasn't working and let those fall away, I think, is where you started with that.
Yeah. And it was like it was out of my control, these things being stripped away. And what I had to learn was, okay, I'm really sick. Normally I would just push through. I remember ringing up my boss and saying, I want to come back to work next week. And she said, really? I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, okay.
False,
And so I,
yes.
yeah, so I went back to work, and the first day I'm just in tears and exhausted after half an hour. And she's like, no, 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 you're going home. We're going to take care of you. You'll still get paid. All beautiful things happen, right? But I had to learn to stand up for myself. And part of that was, okay, I have these very significant health issues. I'm having trouble eating because I'm not well enough to cook. And so I had to, ask for help. I had to, one of the things I did, which I find quite funny now, right? I bought a Thermomix because I had to invest in my health. And I wouldn't have spent the money on a Thermomix. I would have spent it on somebody
What? Okay,
else.
I've never heard of this before. What's a Thermomix?
Ah, so a Thermomix is you use it for cooking, right? And so what it has is it has all these recipes in it. It has a jug that also blends and cooks and does all these things. And so all you have to do is follow the recipe and put the food in there, press the button, it blends it up, let's say I was making a curry, put the chicken in, hit the button, it chops it up a bit, put in the spices, put in the coconut cream, hit the button and it cooks it for 40 minutes and there's a meal, right? Very, very simple.
Okay,
Um,
I wonder if it's more of an Australian
no, it's
cooking
all over the
device. I
world.
haven't heard of it here in
Yeah,
the US
yeah, all,
before.
all over the world. Um, and they're extraordinary, right? And I still use it to this day, and that's been almost 9 years that I bought it. And but it taught me how to cook, right? Like truly taught me about different spices and flavors. But I wasn't well enough to stand in the kitchen and cook myself for all that time. And so it cut my cooking time down from, say, an hour to 10 minutes. All I had to do was
Right.
go back out when it was finished, and there's my meal. And so little things like that. And I also had this question, how do I live from my heart? And I'd done some work. There's a wonderful retreat. It's in 25 countries. There's one coming up in Colorado in November. It's called the Path of Love.
And these videos live in perpetuities. We're talking about November of 2025. We're recording this in
Yes.
October of
Yes.
2025.
Well, and it's on every year in Colorado, and there's two in each year in Australia. They're in Europe. They're many, many, many places, South America. And I had done some of their preliminary work, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go do that week-long Path of Love retreat. That's where I'm going to learn how to live from my heart. And so I'd been out of hospital for about 2.5, 3 months at that stage, and I was still quite ill, but I went, and they took beautiful care of me, and I had the most profound learnings. I was taught so many things and worked through so many judgments of my past and how to connect with people. And it just opened me up to my heart. It blew my heart open like I didn't know was possible. So from there, I thought, okay, well, there's something to this work. I'm going to commit to this work for 12 months. So I did a lot of Path of Love work, and I probably volunteered about 10 times on their retreats to assist in different ways. Um, but it really taught me some foundational things about living from the heart and connected me with the community. And to do that, I had to say yes to myself. My conditioning was like, no, 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 take care of everybody else. You can't leave your daughter for a week. That which many parents have, right? We think that if we spend money on ourselves, we're going to disadvantage the family. However, what did my daughter get in return? She got a much more connected, happier father, right? The impact of that, now that's legacy. That lasts generations. That's passed on through generations. So talk about a ripple effect. It's like if someone's listening to this right now and they're holding back on doing something they know will be benefit to them, you do that. How will that help the people in your ecosystem? How will that help the people around you? What version of you will they get? Especially your children. They are hardwiring in everything you do. So you go and take care of yourself and have a great experience or learn about yourself and come back happier. Your children are going to see that and learn that and go, oh, I saw mum went away and she took care of herself and now she's happier. Then they're going to do that for themselves as an adult. That's legacy. Then they're going to pass it on to their children. yeah, and their children, all because you lived from your heart and took care of yourself.
Wow, Ash, that's powerful.
Mm.
Very powerful. Well, I would imagine that people who are watching and listening right now are wondering how they can connect with you. And you mentioned that you have your own podcast. So will you share with us what you're doing and where people can find you and work with you?
Mm. So the podcast is called Beyond Turning Points, and
Okay.
it's about turning points in your life, and then what do people do after. So interview people. Laurie, you might like to come on as a guest sometime.
Sure. Why not? I'd love
Yeah,
to.
yeah, put you on the spot. But yeah,
Oh,
we'll
it
have a
was, and mine
conversation.
was a true yes. Mine was
Yeah.
not a false yes. That was a true
Oh,
yes.
good, good.
I love these
Nice.
conversations.
Yeah, wonderful. And nice you're integrating that already. Well done, star student. Um, and so there's Beyond Turning Points podcast. I help people connect to their heart. So if there's people there that want to connect with their heart, they can book a free 15-minute connection call, and we can just have a chat and see if working one-to-one works for them. If not, that's fine. There's lots of free resources. So if they look at ashperrow.com, there's quite a few different free resources there. And of course, the heart-led professionals who are out there creating those ripples in the world, there's offerings for them too. So that one of the things I do is a free masterclass where it's okay. You want to share your message and you want to share it from your heart. Okay, this is one way that you can do that. So yeah, it's a lot of beautiful work, and I also do one-to-one mentoring with heart-led professionals that are sharing their message. But fundamentally, it's okay when you connect to your heart, everything else is easier. So people get caught up on the logistics and technicalities of their work, whereas when we're connected to our heart, those things are much, 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 much easier.
I agree. I agree. Wow. Well, Ash, this has been such a great conversation. You shared so many things that you've learned that I know that people who are listening can implement. So I want to thank you so much for what you are doing to help raise the awareness and wake up the collective consciousness. It is so needed right now.
Thank you, Laurie, and likewise, acknowledging you for the work that you do and the gifts and the ripples that you're creating. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. And of course, this show is absolutely nothing without all of you who tune in to watch, listen, comment, and share these amazing conversations. So thank you, everybody, for watching.